rejected 1,000 times. But today I don't beg anymore. That silent weight of hearing a no for the 1,000th time installs an emptiness that seems to pulsate in the chest, a muffled echo that extinguishes the warmth of hope. To feel your body there, firm, and your soul like a distant shadow. It's like sitting in a vast hall, surrounded by doors closing one by one until only the cold corridor remains, lit by warm lamps that no longer provide heat. Each refusal falls like a slow drop on the skin, and without realizing it, we stop seeking an affection that seemed essential, to discover that our dignity does not depend on the breath of those who decide to turn away. Losing others' affection is like the wind carrying away a cloud. The cloud dances in the sky for an instant, changes shape. The sky remains vast and free. This image from Seneca offers unexpected solace. We are not the cloud, we are the sky. If the cloud goes, the sky remains, immense, open, ready to welcome new forms of itself. It is in this inner space that the freedom not to beg for glances anymore resides, the freedom to choose the judgment we give to events. Epictetus reminds us that it is not closed doors that hurt us, but the judgment we make of them. When we stop internalizing the no as a sentence of worth, we gain the lucidity of one who understands that the power to exist with dignity is stored in our own chest. And in this moment of awakening, the sensation of no longer begging expands like a gentle wave. Refusing to beg for attention is not a gesture of coldness, but a profound affirmation of self-love. When we cease the incessant chorus of mental pleas, accept me, see me, recognize, we discover the fertile ground where self-compassion germinates. This soil, cultivated by daily patience, shelters an inner flame that does not depend on external applause. Today I no longer beg. Today I feel that the solidity of my being no longer trembles before others silent, because I've learned that, even in solitude, I am complete within myself. The starting point, the wound of the repeated no. The sensation of inhabiting an endless corridor arises when every opening door brings only the echo of another silence. We pass through the gaps of expectations like people walking single file, hoping that, at the end, someone will embrace us. But the count of closed doors grows, and invisibility becomes our cloak. Each no resonates in the chest like a small hammer, extinguishing the light we once believed inextinguishable. In this constant echo, the body remains present, but the soul wanders, diluted between what is awaited and what is denied. Over time, we learn to translate those negatives as a sentence of worth. Each refusal becomes a reflection of a supposed flaw, feeding the silent guilt that corrodes confidence. The mind becomes imprisoned by unanswered questions. What did I do wrong? What am I lacking? It is then that the wound deepens, not just from the impact of the no, but from the belief that we are responsible for every closed door. The repetition of the pattern simultaneously consoles and punishes, for it keeps us trapped in an illusion of control over others' will. Then the breaking of expectation occurs. We understand that the other's rejection doesn't always have roots in our worth, but in the limitations of those who refuse to see. There are hearts ill-prepared to embrace, distracted gazes that choose not to see, and inner journeys so foreign to ours that they cannot even notice our presence. This discovery doesn't come with immediate relief, but with renewed lightness. When we remove the blame for others' no from ourselves, we open space to look with compassion at both the other and ourselves, and the mute echo of closed doors, once synonymous with defeat, begins to pulsate as an alert signal for one's own dignity. Each refusal ceases to be a hammer and becomes a compass, pointing to those who forgot to honor their own boundary. The wound of the repeated no reveals that it's not our imperfection, but a mismatch between expectation and others' reality. At this starting point, clarity begins to be born, not as an immediate bomb, but as a seed that finds fertile ground in newly awakened consciousness. The Stoic mistake of confusing acceptance with dependence. There's a subtle belief that accepting one's condition means giving up autonomy, as if inner peace were achieved only by bowing to another's gaze. Thus, we unconsciously develop the habit of extending our hands in the hope of attention, as if every plea could fill the internal void. But this dependence, disguised as acceptance, is a trap. We trust that the self-worth we feel depends on the other's response, while losing contact with the virtues that bloom within. When the mind discovers that self-control is not silencing emotions, but choosing where to focus, it realizes that begging for external appreciation would never bring the longed-for serenity. In an instant of clarity, a question echoes deep within. Do I ask for approval, or do I offer my self-value? It is in this confrontation between begging and affirming that stoic freedom reveals itself, showing that the path to self-worth passes through the courage to look inward, without delegating to others the power to validate one's own existence. The inner rupture, when exhaustion becomes clarity. There comes a moment when the exhaustion of trying to fit into every request from others becomes unbearable, as if the body refuses to carry the weight of so many expectations. It's like feeling your knees tremble after hours of forced marching, and then, in the silence of your own fatigue, perceiving the exact contour of your own face, rediscovering yourself in the mirror of your own weariness. In this instant, the mind frees itself from the urgency to please and opens space for raw observation. Exhaustion reveals what was once hidden beneath a cloak of external demand. When unanswered voice notes cease to echo frustrations and transform into signs of a simple truth, clarity emerges. It's not that others' refusal cures the pain, but it lays bare the weariness of an incessant search for approval. We realize finally that begging for attention corrodes one's vital force, while the other's silence points to the need to rediscover one's own voice. The rupture doesn't come as instant relief, but as a beacon that illuminates the inner territory, demanding that we walk honestly regarding our own need. Amidst this revelation, an almost silent impulse arises to record 3 small daily victories, that genuine smile that bloomed for no reason, the words spoken with conviction, the moment we listen to ourselves without hate. These simple notes serve as anchors for the new reality, that of someone who doesn't need to beg for applause because they've learned to recognize their own worth. Clarity then establishes itself not as empty consolation, but as an invitation to build a path where vital energy flows freely, without depending on the reflection of another's gaze. Rebuilding boundaries, saying no without guilt. There's a silent strength in uttering a no that doesn't echo in guilt, but in self-respect, as a gesture of care for one's own heart. When we recognize that no has the same value as yes, we open up space for inner peace. Each refusal becomes an act of preservation, not rejection. In the Stoic construction of serenity, setting boundaries means tracing the outline of one's own being, defining where each person's responsibility ends, and the freedom to choose who we want to be begins. Imagine a dike that, by closing an imperceptible crack in the wall, prevents the lake from overflowing and flooding village. This dike, made of small and constant decision, is the boundary that protects the village that lives within you. Every time you internally reaffirm your right not to yield, the walls strengthen, ensuring that emotional waters do not invade sacred spaces of silence and clarity. The metaphor holds the secret of making the boundary not a cold barrier, but a benevolent shield that embraces all parts of. In daily life, perceiving an uncomfortable situation is recognizing the exact moment the dike needs repair. Upon feeling the tension of an imposed expectation, the echo of a request that resonates with a demanding tone, the opportunity arises to reassert your inner space silently, but with conviction. In this intimate gesture, without grand spectacles, clarity solidifies. The boundary you hold in thought remains faithful to your worth, reminding you that dignity is never begged for, but sustained by every act of self-love. The power of silence, restoring self-compassion. There's an internal vastness that reveals itself the exact moment external noise dissolves, leaving only the sound of your own breath. The silence that follows a rejection is not emptiness, but fertile ground where we can listen to the voice we often stifle. In this unspoken space, each heartbeat echoes as a reminder that we are more than fleeting echoes of others' expectations. Silence opens a portal to self-compassion, for only those who listen to their own lament without distractions discover the tenderness needed to embrace their own pain. When the weight of unspoken words and unmet requests presses on your chest, the flow of thoughts becomes a whirlwind that pulls you away from yourself. It is in this whirlwind that the ritual of 3 conscious breaths gains meaning. Inhale and feel the air filling your body. Exhale and feel the gentle relief that arises from accepting each emotion without wanting to erase it. This brief gesture of attention, inhale, exhale, observe, repeats like a silent mantra, teaching that the deepest care begins in the gentle encounter with one's own feeling. Each inhale renews the pact of inner compassion, and each exhale dissipates the weight of having waited for an answer in external shout. In the heart of this restorative silence, we learn that being silent about one's own story is not surrender, but an act of courage. Silence heals because it sets limits on the noise that insists on denying our truth. In it, self-compassion blossoms without haste, reminding us that dignity is not begged for in loud voices, but is sustained by the serenity of one who embraces every inner shadow with a compassionate gaze. When the world falls silent, we discover that within us there is an older and wiser voice, ready to offer the affection we may never have begged for, but always deserve. Conclusion: a new look at no. The moment the echo of 1,000 rejections dissolves, the revelation emerges that the greatest aversion we pleaded against was our own. Every no received, every closed door didn't extinguish our flame. In fact, it served to illuminate inner path that remained in the shadow of insecurity. The repetition of closed doors, once a hammer striking the soul, now transforms into a rhythmic beat that teaches us to recognize our own rhythm. When the hammer stops, we hear the silence. And it is in this silence that resilience and the certainty that we don't need to beg for dignity are born, for it already inhabits the fertile ground of our being. Seneca insists that adversity reveals what we truly keep secret, and it is in the pain of every refusal that we discover the invisible fortress of our value. Marcus Aurelius, in his Practical Serenity, echoes that what is unbearable in itself finds relief when we face it. Thus, by looking directly at the wound of disdain, we learn to build our intimate fortress. Today, after all the closed doors, we remain standing, not because we ignore others' silence, but because we listen attentively to the confident pulse of our own heart.